Hello everybody and welcome to today's edition of the First Take UK podcast, the UK's leading US sports debate podcast with me, Ollie Connolly, and alongside me as always is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Edwards. Steven, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's a Monday. We've actually completed almost another week of NFL. We just got the Monday Night Football coming up, and what a weekend it's been.
It's been a really good weekend. The Seahawks got toppled. The Green Bay just pulled out against the New York Jets with a bizarre timeout. And there's plenty more storylines to discuss, and I just want to try and get around to, if we have time, this sort of situation that's rumbling around the NBA between Coach K, one of the biggest figures in basketball, and Adrian Wozniacki, one of the other biggest figures in basketball. So if we have time, we'll get to that as well. But we have 6 NFL games to cover. Where shall we start?
Let's start off with the NFL. We've got to close off those late Sunday night games.
I think we should start with the latest of Sunday night games. Sunday Night Football, a really interesting game. Opening up Levi's Stadium to a regular season match. You got the Chicago Bears going to San Francisco. San Francisco come out really hard. They go up, I think it was 17-0 if memory serves. Kaepernick looks in rhythm. He looked dynamite. He looked deadly. He's always box office. Then the wheels fall off for them and for him. And Chicago rally back. You know, Jay Cutler struggled to begin with. Then he takes a major blow to the chest where he said afterwards it felt like his spleen touched his back. I don't know what happened, but it sort of got him into ready to go. He went 13 for 14, looked really efficient, led them back. They had Jeffrey, who had the groin injury. They had Brandon Marsh with the ankle injury. So the whole team wasn't really ready to go when they came out. And somehow, some way, they found a way to win this football game. And another team where we're like, who are they after week 1 and week 2? We don't know. But I thought it was a spectacular win for them with all the circumstances around them.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we were looking at one stage over the weekend as though both Marshall and Jeffrey weren't going to be available. And then they've managed to get both these guys out on the field. I mean, Marshall was given clearance about 90 minutes before the game started. And
I don't think Brandon Marshall was giving clearance. I think Brandon Marshall said, I'm playing this football game. He could barely move. They had Chris Culver for the 49ers. Wasn't even getting out of his break. He was covering Brandon Marshall. Didn't even have to get out of his break. He was sat on every single thing. But he's got such a big catching radius. It was essentially, let's just throw it out there and hope Brandon comes down with the ball. And he did it more often than not. An incredibly gutsy performance from Marshall, who again, I think just said, I'm going to play this game. Big game for them.
Yeah, he never had games like this when he was a Dolphin.
Well, he had, all the other stuff was going on with him. He's basically a new guy now. They signed a free agent who was essentially a brand new player and one of the best in the league. It was incredibly gutsy. I was just so impressed with them offensively and defensively. Somehow that defense has kind of stepped up a bit against a team that should have blown them off the field. And I've got serious reservations right now. The Harbaugh, Roman Kaepernick thing. We need to find out, A, who's calling the plays, B, what Kaepernick's allowed to do within the offense. Because right now it looks to me like they're calling plays, and then Colin is trying, just relying on the arm strength he has, insane arm strength and arm power, and he's trying to force into windows where he's got no right and no reason to. But then you look at the offense, and it's so tailored to Michael Crabtree and Vernon Davis, and they seem to neglect the fact they have Anquan Boldin, they have Stevie Johnson, they just drafted Bruce Ellington. They have a ton of playmakers, yet they've tailored the offense to 2 guys, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, this offense is very difficult to understand at times because you could do so much more. I mean, last week I thought they looked very, very good, but again, they was against a very, very poor Cowboys defense. But I mean, this Bears defense is pretty dire as well. So you'd have to think that the 49ers were easy going to be able to win this game, but it just wasn't the case. Going back to that Harbaugh situation, I mean, for me, I think Harbaugh has gone at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah,
I really do. This whole relationship has completely gone downhill.
Well, him and Trent Baalke just don't like each other, flat out dislike each other. And he's one of those guys who goes in, it's a rah-rah mentality for 2 years, everyone gets behind it. He's the first year he clears out the bad players and, all the attitude problems. The second year he really sticks up the players and they all get behind it. The third and fourth year, it's done. It wears on players. They just don't want to hear how much they suck anymore when they go into Super Bowls and they go into NFC Championship games. They want answers, and some of them just want emotional support. You look at a guy like John Gruden. He wasn't great in the camp, always emotional support, but when it was needed most, he would sit down with the quarterback. They would laugh and they joke, and it would put teams over the edge. Harbaugh doesn't have an off switch and doesn't have another personality to go to. Something like a Bill Parcells, who would be this big rah-rah guy when he came in. Then you flip the switch when you have a veteran team. He knew when to flip it. That's why he was a true champion, a 2-time Super Bowl winner. I don't know if Harbaugh has that switch. I don't think he does, and it's definitely not going to happen in San Francisco now.
No, I mean, the way I always say it is these kind of coaches do very, very well all the time the team's winning.
Mm-hmm.
When the team starts losing, players switch off from that very, very quickly. It's like a guy like Patrick Waugh in the NHL, who did wonderful things with Colorado last season, and he's a really aggressive coach and shouts and shouts and shouts.
Mm-hmm.
That's great all the time you're winning.
Well,
when you lose, then you then kind of have some problems as well, because certain players just turn off from certain mentalities very, very quickly. This San Francisco team is kind of worrying, because you can see how great this team can be, and yet you then take a look at them against a team like the Bears and think, how on earth do you lose that game? Well, they lose the game because they turn the ball over. 4 times they managed to turn the ball over. They get 16 penalties as well. I mean, this game had 26 penalties.
Oh, it was embarrassing to watch. It was so painful. You know, I tweeted out and stuff. We had a half of football. We saw about 28 seconds of play. And every time there was a tackle, they threw a flag. It was embarrassing. It was a real bad advert for the game, to use that phrase people love to. If people are staying up for Sunday Night Football here and even in the US, just a real bad game to watch. It was not really fun at all, but I persevered. I stayed through because, goddamn, I love watching Colin Kaepernick play football. But right now, I'm just confused, and you know more than anyone my love and appreciation for Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator. I'm stunned Miami didn't say, let's can this joke of a guy Philbin and let's ring this fella in San Francisco who's rebuilt Colin Kaepernick's mechanics to some extent and made him a dynamic playmaker in the NFL after being a guy at Nevada who people like, they took him in the second round. What a weird choice that was. This Harbaugh thing is so weird, because this isn't a team that was losing and now is getting down. They were winning games a plenty, you know. Super Bowl, NFC Championship game. Yes, it wasn't where they wanted to be. They didn't win the last one, but they were still winning a ton of games. And he just, for some reason, was entertaining the idea of going to Cleveland in a trade. Wrong idea, wrong impression. And then you get Alex Boone, a big-time leader, holding out in training camp. The coach doesn't seem to be desperate to bring him out. Remember Rex Ryan driving to a diner to try and convince Darrelle Revis? None of those stories coming out with Alex Boone. You may think, oh, but Darrelle Revis was a shutdown guy. Alex Boone means a heck of a lot to that run game. There was just a really odd sort of scenario and goings-on with the whole team and attitude in San Francisco right now. And their offense, to me, again, is baffling. They should essentially look over to those guys who keep beating them in Seattle and steal their playbook. Because that is based, again, on a power run scheme, Marshawn Lynch to Frank Gore, but it still has those spread elements where you can utilize the feet of Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick in this instance, and they need to try and get a playmaker because they have them in Bruce Ellington, and Stevie Johnson can be that guy to some extent, and you use them in a Percy Harvin role, jet sweeps, you know, delayed handoffs, motion him into the backfield, have him in the backfield, motion to empty. You can do all these inventive things based out of a power run game. They just seem to be content with power run, and then maybe Kaepernick pulls it and runs it himself every now and then, and that seems to be the inventive element of their offense. They're not inventive enough with the talent they have.
No, and I like that running back tandem as well, Gore and Hyde. I mean, I think you can do a hell of a lot of damage with that, and it just opens up so many more options. But then if you don't look to open up those options, then what's the point? You've got the players there, to, as you say, to be inventive, then why not do it? Obviously, it's just going to become very, very predictable, and it's going to end exactly the same way at the end of this season, in a loss somewhere. It's not going to end up with the ultimate prize.
And let's give big props to Jay Cutler in this game. Remember, I banged the table last week. You can't win a championship with this guy. I still don't think you can, but he really reined it in when he had to. Again, he was not all over the place, but a little bit shaky. Then he took that monster hit, and, you know, Chris Collinsworth said it on the broadcast immediately. He's done. He's out. It looked like he was just split in half, and he was going to be done for the game. And he stands up and goes 13 for 14, a ton of touchdowns. He became a game manager. He reined himself in, and he was almost forced to, because Marshall and Jeffrey, with the injuries, couldn't get off press coverage and get in behind where he had to force those throws. He was just making timing patterns, being efficient, making the right read. I like that Jay Cutler. That guy can win some games for you. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Impressive.
No, exactly. I mean, this guy can have those kind of performances. But can I just say something to you about Collinsworth? Is there a more boring person on the planet? Why on earth is he on Sunday Night Football?
Go read my Twitter feed.
He's a cure for insomniacs.
Go read my Twitter feed. This is exactly what I was saying at the time. People were getting involved with that. I was trying to ask who was more boring. Mitt Romney was the prevailing answer. That would be a heck of an interview between those fellas. Imagine that. What a bore fest. Yeah, there's not even a whiter man on the planet. Is anyone more white? Maybe Phil Simms. They are the 2 whitest fellas that have ever graced this earth in a game that is embraced with African American culture. Very bizarre.
Put him on afternoon games. Do not put him on the Sunday
you have
night
to,
games, especially not for us people over in the UK.
You have to bury him in like the Jacksonville-Washington game if you can do. You know what I mean? You just have to. Let's go to some of the other later games, and let's go to St. Louis, Tampa Bay. I mean, this Tampa Bay team, they were a sneaky contender in the NFC South. People got excited, myself included. They were the Andy Reid Award candidate. Good team, good talent. Can we find a good football coach not called Greg Schiano? They did it in Lovie Smith. They signed Alistair Verner. They signed a ton of defensive talent. They made one big, bold mistake in the offseason, Stephen Edwards. What was that? They went out and signed that fella Josh McCown, who was playing in the UFL 24 months ago. You know, completely overlooking a rookie who had a really good season last year, Mike Glennon. They now go with Josh McCown, and he wasn't too bad last night. He wasn't the reason they lost that game. Yeah, he still threw a pick and no touchdowns. He did rush for one in the end. It's decent play. I just can't get a read on this team. I understand they're going against a really good front four of St. Louis, and they've got, you know, decent linebacker struggle on the back end, but offensively, they should be all over the place. You've got to make that team be punished by forcing Austin Davis to make some plays. You can't have Austin Davis run for 235 yards.
No, I mean, just touching on Austin Davis for a minute. I mean, he was impressive. I mean, he was very efficient, showed a lot of composure. I mean, you've got to stay with him at the moment and to see exactly what you can do with him. There's no reason to at this particular moment to go and get another quarterback because you're not going to go anywhere. So why bother taking that risk? I think you just assess the situation at the end of the season and see what happens. And I thought, yeah, he was tremendous, and you give him a chance to get a win on the road and lead the team down the field and get the late field goal. I think, you know, that again is just another impressive thing to do. And we're not going to sit here and say that he's going to, you know, light up the NFL, but you know, he could very well have these types of games at some point, and you know, fair play to him and wish him all the best. But Tampa, I mean, we did talk about Tampa, as you just said, about a team that could, you know, surprise a few people, you know, better defensively. You know, they should be able to hopefully score enough offense. But I mean, you should not be losing at home to St. Louis, a team that's got this amount of problems. I mean, yeah, McCown did play pretty well yesterday. I mean, he did have the interception, which was obviously
pathetic,
unfortunate, and he didn't manage to actually pass for a touchdown. But I mean, Rainey did incredibly well on the ground for them. I think Tampa will take a look at this game and think, how on earth did we actually lose this game? Because they probably did enough to actually be able to win it.
Yeah, it was going to come down to the last drive. That was always evident. They were neck and neck throughout the game, but it shouldn't have even been close. That's the issue.
Yeah.
You've got Lovie Smith, great defensive mind. You spend all that money on Alistair Verner and the guys up front. You invest draft picks offensively in wide receiver and tight end, respectively, in the first, second, and third round. You should be beating teams like this handily when they have no quarterback. No doubt about it. They shouldn't have got more than 6 points on you with Austin Davis at quarterback, and 17 should have been plenty for yourself. I mean, it goes back to something Mays said, I think, with St. Louis. He said this on the Grantland podcast this week, and I don't want to pile on Jeff Fisher, but they've essentially tailored their offense to Greg Zuerlein. Yes, he has the best leg in the league, but stop settling for Greg Zuerlein field goals. They've got to get more aggressive up front. I genuinely feel, and you just said they're not going anywhere, I think they got a shot. I look at that NFC West, Seattle, they're not unbeatable. We're going to talk about that in a second. The 49ers aren't unbeatable. You know, we just saw what happened there. They've got a shot. I really think they have a shot, and the Cardinals are a good team. Again, they're not unbeatable. The Rams have a shot. They really do, and they got to go out and find someone they can believe in and trust in. I don't think Austin Davis can do it week to week, but there's got to be someone out there that they can give a 4th round pick for. Anyone. You know, I mentioned Eli Manning in a piece I wrote today. It's very unlikely, but just find someone and just roll with it and give it a shot. It's a really good team. It's really talented, and it's atrocious to watch them be run into the ground by Schottenheimer, the OC, and having to run out a guy in Austin Davis who is eventually going to get found out when there's tape.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's going to get found out. I mean, it's going to happen probably sooner rather than later. But I mean, you know, I mean, Zuerlein yesterday kicked 4 field goals and, you know, played a big part in being able to win that game. I mean, you can look from the other point of view. It's great when you've got a kicker that you can trot out there that you can rely on pretty much 100%. That's going to help.
What I'm talking about in terms of, you know, relying on the field goal kicker, he's the best in the league. It's not even close right now. The leg on this guy is, and that's why they call him Greg the Leg. But running on 3rd and 5th because you know if you don't get it, you've got 3 points, is not good enough in the NFL to win games consistently. It just isn't. You've got to be taking risks. and trust in his leg even more. Say maybe if we don't get the 5, Greg can still get it. There's situations like that all the time. I've seen them run draw plays on 3rd and 12. They're just not ambitious enough, and they have playmakers. They drafted Tavon Austin for a reason. They're just not. I just don't think it's an ambitious enough team.
The thing is, as well, though, when you're putting a guy out there like Austin Davis, you can't rely on him in some respects to come up with those big plays. So I can understand him being a bit more conservative on offense. It doesn't surprise me because you want to get those points on the board, and it's very difficult. It really is, and I don't know which way they want to go this season. My gut feeling has always been the minute your quarterback goes down for them, you probably not necessarily throw the season, but I don't think you want to be ambitious about it. But, if they are potentially going to be able to make a run in this division, we've always talked about that defense keeping them in games, then I would agree with you that you would then go and get a quarterback, because I don't like the idea of relying on Austin Davis week in, week out, because teams that in this division will find him out very quickly.
Okay, let's go to San Diego. What a monster game this was. This was a game that was tipped by many to be the upset against Seattle. There's just something about this San Diego team. Remember, they kept Denver close and beat them once last year. A big fit. We said maybe if anyone's going to make the AFC Championship game outside of New England and Denver, it could be them or Pittsburgh. They were our picks. So they were a favorable team coming into this, and you look at the way that Phillip Rivers has progressed ever since Ken Whisenant came in. Now he's gone to Tennessee. It doesn't look like he's missed a beat. Seems to have revitalized that guy. And this game, to me, was all about time of possession, running the clock, 42 minutes for San Diego. The offense only had it 17 minutes for Seattle. In that heat, it was one of the hottest days in San Diego. You just can't be on the field that long. They had 17 first downs. They had 10 for 17 on 3rd down. They just ran the ball and just held it non-stop. Rivers made play after play on 3rd down. And you can't be on the field that long. In that heat, you can't have the defense on the field for 42 minutes. It's not going to work, because they don't rotate on the back end much at all. They rotate everyone up front constantly. It's a constant rotation in the front 4. But Wagner, Maxwell, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, they never come off the field. You can't be on the field for 42 minutes in that heat. And I want to immediately say the fools who are saying Richard Sherman got exposed are just dumb. And I know players said it for San Diego. They're doing it to try and get a rise out of Sherman, obviously, trying to bait him, as you would do with someone of that sort of personality. He was beaten once on a double team where he just played the ball badly. Once. That's once in 2 games, people. If that's exposed, I'd love to be exposed in the NFL. Once in 2 games. The best quarterback in the league supposedly didn't even throw to him. The guy was not exposed. He's clearly a press man guy. He was playing off Keenan Allen because he was scared of his speed. And Keenan Allen beat him once. What happens in the NFL? He still had a good game. The Legion of Boom have got issues with tackling in the secondary when you throw underneath. There's issues for Seattle, but they still look really good. Moreover, majorly impressed by San Diego. Majorly impressed. The game plan. I was speaking to Josh Hunt, my friend from UK Endzone, who's a big San Diego fan just before. This McCoy character, the head coach, they have a different game plan every week. I think he's terrific. I think this could be the most underrated head coach right now, because he's only been in the job such a short amount of time. To have a new game plan every week against every opponent to that extent is really impressive. Yeah,
it is really impressive, because if you know you're going against a coach like that, you don't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's already half the battle won for you on a football field. This was a potential banana skin game for Seattle. It was always going to be very, very tough. And then you have the elements against you as well. And as you've already covered off there, the possession. The other one that sticks out for me is the fact that San Diego had 75 total plays to Seattle's 40. That's
and draining the clock, and so ridiculous. People are just standing as it. And if you look at the time of possession, that looks like a load of plays difference. It should have been more in that time of possession. They were killing the clock. It was similar to when I spoke about New England yesterday. We're going to take the clock to 2 seconds every play. You're going to stand there. You're going to wait. You're going to wait in the heat. And people say, it's the same thing for the offense, but they rotated a ton. Look at their rushing stats. Look at the receiving stats. They rotated guys in and out. Whereas you've got Seattle guys, that back 5, just standing around, and that's just you're just waiting for mistakes when that happens, and they are the best in the game. Still going to make mistakes in that heat, under those circumstances, facing Phillip Rivers, who just looks terrific right now. You're going to make mistakes, and I love the fact that San Diego pointed at Richard Sherman, and at least that side of the field, that left side of the field, and said, we're coming right at it, right there, that's where we're going. We're going to line up our number 1 guy on your number 1 guy, because we think he can beat him, I love that they came after him. I love their entire game plan. That's the only way you can beat Seattle, and the only way to do it, by the way, is in your own house. You can't do it on the road.
No, you can't do it on the road. I mean, we talked about the fact that Seattle, if you're going to try and beat them, you've got to get a running game going. You've got to try and dominate that clock, and just try and be as successful as possible. I mean, Rivers can have those types of games. It's not unheard of, and he was just tremendous yesterday. And San Diego didn't turn the ball over, so you don't beat yourself either. Mm-hmm. So they did everything right in this game. They only still won by 9 points. That's still a lot about Seattle at that point, is the fact that they still kept themselves in this game. That you've got San Diego pretty much played the perfect game and still only come out on top by 9 points against this team.
It's a valid point. It's a bit skewed because Harvin stepped out of bounds about 20 times on his touchdown run, and for some reason they said, "Oh, let's not check that," back in New York. So there's that great new centralized replay system at work for you in all these major sports where they still get it wrong. The major thing for me out of Seattle that was really worrying and just frankly bizarre, what was going on with Marshawn Lynch? You're running beast mode 6 times a game, and he's averaging 6 a carry, so you're not even going to go with him more. I liked what Turbin did, and he only had a couple of carries, but when they used him in the screen game, he hit, I can't remember who it was, a cornerback. He hit him twice, and I shuddered. It was so powerful. But Lynch does that on every play. That's what he does. He lowers the shoulders, he brings the boom, and he's their offensive battering ram and their tone setter. And they ran him 6 times. That's the same collective as Wilson, Turbin, and Harvin. You've got to be running him, 15, 20 times a game.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was the fact that San Diego got out ahead by a couple of touchdowns. And
still, if it's this is a thing that often annoys me, and I'm sorry to butt in, Steven, people say this all the time. Now you've got to go and rely on the throw. What does your offense tick best on? What does your offense tick best on? So they get out early, and it's what I'm looking here. Before half time, you're 27 down, and there's plenty of time. Run the ball, run what you do best, bring it back to 2014. Game's on. You just got to run your offense the best way.
It's sometimes what teams fall into, and they forget what's got them to the dance. Mm-hmm. If you've got a balanced offense, good running game, good passing game, stay with it because you're still going to get back into this game. But some teams all of a sudden then become more pass orientated. I mean, it didn't help. I mean, if you only got the ball for 17 minutes and 45 seconds, I mean, that's 12, 13 minutes below what you potentially could have had it for. So if you take that into consideration, then maybe Lynch gets up to maybe around about 10, 11 carries, but even that isn't enough. San Diego just played the perfect game. They really did. And they showed how you can beat this team.
They can do. You've got to do it in your own place. You've got to turn the temperature up. You've got to run the ball for 42 minutes. You've got a shot. You may win by 9. Let's go. Texans traveling to the Raiders. The Texans come out 30-14 victors. I thought Derek Carr looked pretty good, even though he had two interceptions. Looking off the safety is the main thing I look for in these young guys, and the guy has it upstairs more than I ever thought he did do. The Texans took the same game plan as I think the Bills did against your Dolphins. We're going to run the ball. We're going to limit Fitzpatrick. If he doesn't make mistakes, we're going to win some games. And J.J. Watt. We're going to say it every time, people, because J.J. Watt had a touchdown catch in this game. He lined up in a jumbo set. They lined him up at tight end. He snuck out the back. No one even saw him coming. He grabs a touchdown. They're just fantastic defensively, as they're going to be with Cushing and Swearinger, and they just bring heat. They got J.J. Watt, obviously no Jadeveon Clowney right now. But if they don't turn the ball over, they're going to win a ton of games. I understand it's against an Oakland team where half the guys are there on a retirement package, but I still think they're a pretty good team. You've got to hand it to Bill O'Brien, who looked dreadful during training camp. The players didn't look like they knew what they were doing. Suddenly you come into the real thing, the lights are on, the cameras are rolling, and you're 2-0.
Yeah, Texans fans won't get carried away.
They were 2-0 last year. But Arian Foster...
won't get carried away at 2-0.
Could you ever foresee an Arian Foster day where he's got 28 carries for 138? He, to me, is a guy you give him like 15 max, and he's going to take... You may get those 138, but to be a workhorse, powerful back, I didn't anticipate that from him. I was really impressed.
Yeah, I thought he was excellent yesterday, and he literally, pardon the pun, carried the Texans to victory. It's against a poor Oakland team. I mean, this is it. Unfortunately, it is a poor Oakland team. And I don't think Derek Carr did that bad. He probably played better against Houston than David ever did in a Houston jersey. I mean,
You've been waiting to say that for some time. I can tell.
I never liked David Carr.
You didn't. Did you see the James Jones double fumble play? Might be the play of the year.
Yeah.
I like James Jones. He had 112 yards. I didn't even realize it. I just saw the double fumble in one play that was just indicative of a team that's going nowhere and going nowhere in a hurry. They're a prime candidate for... I wrote about this again today on UKEndzone.com in return to the Packers and their defense, where it's just like, yes, the best candidates for your job, as in terms of the head coach at Oakland right now, are either with the good teams because they're winning teams and they're coordinators, or they're in college because the college season's going on. But just any voice may be better right now than having the one who's we know is going to get fired and who they don't believe in, to the point where just promote an assistant, like the assistant tight ends coach, and it's a different voice. One of those situations where I just fire him, similar to what the Cowboys did with Wade Phillips, and they promoted Jason Garrett, which they were obviously waiting to do. But you just promote anyone and say, look, this is your team for 8 games, then we're going to have a whole process. But just you enjoy the 8 games of being a head coach, maybe get something on your resume, and the players get a different voice. Maybe you win 2 games. It's one of those sort of situations where having Allen there right now just makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think something's got to change. I mean, when do we actually think the Raiders might actually win a game?
I think they're a better team than they've looked. You know, they've got real defensive talent. I love Khalil Mack, as you know. The offense can hum when it needs to, but again, you know, MJD missing, Darren McFadden obviously missing. They just don't have enough playmakers. James Jones is playing out of his skin right now for a guy who I think's over the hill, and that's who they're relying on. So they just haven't got enough offensive playmakers. We know what happens in this league when you don't have that. You can't win games solely on defense anymore. It just doesn't happen.
No, this is it. And going back to your JJ Watt comment, that was the first pass he caught since 2007.
I love JJ. Is there nothing you can't do, Steven?
JJ. Man crush on JJ.
Everyone has a man crush on JJ. If you're a football fan, you got a man crush on JJ. Let's go to Green Bay. Let's head to Lambeau Field, where my guy Geno Smith, I tell you what, I was looking as giddy as all likely when they were leading 21-something during this game. And Geno was playing like an all-pro play. He was spreading the ball everywhere. He was making no mistakes. He was rushing for first downs. He was rushing to the end zone. He was firing bombs all over the joint. The wheels came off a bit with the Jets defensively, which is something we wouldn't expect. I probably hand that down to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is on the other side of the field, so maybe give them some leeway. And then you get the bizarre situation. Geno throws a dime for a touchdown to tie this football game, and the offensive coordinator called a timeout to bring it back. Are you kidding me? Why is an offensive coordinator calling the timeout and doing it in that spot? Such a bizarre call. Cost their team a chance at overtime. Cost their team a chance at a winning Lambeau Field that could have sent the Packers to 2-0. So this looks to people like, well, the Jets hung in there and, you know, it was closer than maybe we expected. The Jets should have won this game. They really should have done. Major issues in Green Bay defensively and offensively. They're struggling to some extent as well. But the Jets should be kicking themselves for the next week because they really should have pulled this out.
Yeah, they should have done. Just absolutely bizarre. It was like one of those situations where if it could go wrong, it will go wrong. And it went very, very wrong. Geno started out well, but then, he came back down to earth a bit, unfortunately. Some of your tweets in the first half.
Hey, look, I sent one. I said, those people who text me every time Geno makes a mistake, please text me now, because he was ripping them apart. He looked like Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers was getting sacked everywhere. They went down the field for 14-0, and he was just throwing dives. I just saw him throw 2 back shoulder throws on a fade pass, and where I was like, oh my god, Dan Marino's in the game. What is going on here? He's better than I even imagined he could be. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. And no one did text me, by the way, just to point out those who do mock me about Geno Smith. No one had the courage to say, oh, he's having a good game. He was really good, and then the wheels fell off, and I've always had my question about Marty Morningwig. People know this. How on earth can an offensive coordinator think he should call a timeout in that position? It's not on him. That's why the head coaches get paid the big money. That's why the spotlight comes on him when the game's on the line. There's decisions to be made. The head football coach, Rex Ryan, a guy who's been on the hot seat for years now, he makes those decisions. That's why he gets the big paycheck. And I don't blame the officials. I've seen some Jets writers, write about how it's on the officials. They cost them a game. Like, if you're an official and it's at that, clutch point of the game and you hear someone scream timeout from the sideline, you're going to blow the whistle. You're not going to look around and go, was that you, Rex? Let's just double check. Was that you, Rex? Was that Marty? How's he supposed to know? He's going to hear the scream. He's going to blow the whistle for the timeout. ridiculous decision. And if you're Rex Ryan, imagine the stare that you're giving right now to Marty Morningwig for just the whole week. Like, you did that to us. You cost us that game. Because I think you really cost him a game.
Which is a worse stare, Rex Ryan or Peyton Manning's?
I don't know. Did you see the Sean Payton? We didn't discuss this yesterday. The Rob Ryan Sean Payton fight on the sideline yesterday. That's a stare that's gonna get, because Rob Ryan takes no mess, and he didn't want to get called out in the middle of the game. I understand Sean Payton's frustrations, but the offense wasn't lighting up. Let's be honest. Drew Brees didn't get to 300. That's usually his benchmarks. The best fighter this week, I think, will be Rex and will be Marty Morningwig.
Do you know, it's becoming a common theme, isn't it? Obviously, like a few weeks ago, we had Kiffin and Saban.
This is what happens when you get these coordinators who think they're head coaches. And they're not head coaches. You know, Lane Kiffin thinks he's still a head coach. He's at Alabama for some bizarre reason. Marty Morningwig is desperate to be a head coach. He tried to usurp Rex. Didn't happen for him. And you've got Rob Ryan, who will be a head coach of the Raiders next year, in my opinion, and should probably be a head coach. He doesn't want to get called out on the sidelines by Sean Payton. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, we should start actually making predictions actually on our Pick'em show, which relationship's going to break down on the that week's NFL.
Well, it should be Dom Capers and Mike McCarthy at Green Bay, because that defense is atrocious. They can't tackle in space. It's like watching a college team at times. You get them out in a flat run situation. This is where I don't understand the offensive game plan. Once the Jets are in the lead, everything should have been a run play or a screen play or something into the flat. Get people in space and just watch the Green Bay Packers somehow shape around you to miss tackles. It's phenomenal to watch how they can find themselves missing tackles and just throw away from Clay Matthews. Very simple game plan in the second half. That defense is so terrible. Again, just a perfect situation for any different voice. It's not working now. However much you respect the guy, you got to get rid of Dom Capers, the DC, bring in any different voice.
You make it sound like they should be on like a sports bloopers in an old Dire Straits music video.
They got torn apart by Geno Smith, and I'm Geno's biggest fan, but you should not be getting torched up, making Geno look like Dan Marino.
No, you shouldn't, especially on Dan Marino's birthday. Happy birthday, Dan.
Big happy birthday to Dan Marino again. The guy, I was watching some of the stuff today because I was watching a football life about another player. He's just so special. No one ever threw a ball like him. No one ever will throw a ball like him.
No. Dan Marino is... I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best quarterback I ever saw, because unfortunately he's not, but...
I tell you what, you line him up.
Definite man crush.
You line him up for one game, you take the resumes out of it. It's pretty damn close. Him and Elway, I would say, if you just lined them up and they all played. Pretty damn close.
Yeah, Dan was the only person to beat that 85 Bears team.
I think so. I think if you just had him in a game, no resumes, I'd probably take Dan Marino. Just the way he throws the ball is sensational. Denver, Kansas City. Kansas City played Denver pretty well. They came back from just an atrocious week last week. You get injuries, you have suspensions, your game manager throws 3 interceptions. You come into this game with low expectations. I'm picking you to lose by 50 and all these different things. Peyton comes out and just trouble again for the Broncos to move the ball at times. I just don't know what's up with this team. I mean, they still look dominant when they're on the field, yet they just don't seem to get enough points. And then you've got Kansas City playing pretty well. They obviously lose Jamal Charles. Niall Davis runs the ball pretty effectively. Give me a read on this one.
I think it's another one, isn't it? Is that Kansas City figured out something, and it sounds so simple. If you keep Manning off the field, Manning can't score points.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Kansas City managed to do. We really did fear for Kansas City this one, that they could have been lit up, and it just didn't happen. I mean, Manning had a very good day.
Well, he does.
But at times, the offense didn't move the football, and I think Kansas City did a great thing, as I say, because they managed, despite the fact that they didn't have Jamal Charles available to them, they managed to run the ball enough to keep that offense for Denver off the field and keep the ball moving. And Alex Smith just managed to make enough plays that he could and set up the running game. It was more a case of him setting up the running game rather than the other way around. And Kansas City managed just to hang around in this game and could very well have took this game into overtime. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was right there, right at the very end. They could have really put it into there, and then following on from that, anything could happen in overtime, and they could have maybe even pulled that one out, and that would have been a real shocker result.
Yeah, Denver needs to find a way to run the ball better. I don't know what it is that they need to do. Peyton's playing, so there's just no one in the box. At times, they just don't care. You're watching Peyton. who is just phenomenal right now. I'm going to say it right now, he's the best quarterback in the game. It isn't even close. Brady's been dreadful deep. Rodgers was scared to throw to one side of the field. He's on another planet right now. And he has the deadliest play in football right now. It used to be, you had the Percy Harvin sweep. You have the Adrian Peterson counterplay where he's just too quick for everyone on that quick move from one side to the other. Right now, when Peyton Manning's in the shotgun and he audibles and you've got no idea what he just did, you can't stop it. No one can stop it. He's the best player on the planet right now. And for some reason, they can't run the ball when you've got a guy standing back there, quarterback, who's doing all these different things and hand signals, and the defense has no idea what's going on. They're trying to guess what's going to happen from this fella, and they're all ready for the pass play. Running the ball should be pretty easy. It was last year. And we both respect and appreciate what Noshan Marino can do, and sometimes he got disrespect as just anyone could fit into that system, as they thought with Monty Ball, who they drafted out of Wisconsin. Monty doesn't have the vision. He's not hitting the right holes at the right times. He's costing himself and themselves yardage. If they can't run the ball, they can't put teams away. This is 2 weeks now. If they could run the ball effectively, they would have put this team away pretty easily.
I've just heard JJ Watt get a bit annoyed because you call somebody else the best player on the planet.
Well,
so
you look at the
be aware of that.
Look, this is, and I had this epiphany yesterday. I think JJ Watt is the best player on the planet because him to his next position is just so superior, and Robert Quinn is a sensational player who just got paid, thankfully for him, but it's not even close. And it would normally be him, but the drop-off between Peyton and Aaron Rodgers and Brady right now, and Breeze is so severe, you've got to tip it to the quarterback. Like, if those guys came out and played their normal games and Rodgers wasn't scared of one side of the field and Brady could throw the ball downfield, yeah, JJ would be the best. But from the first 2 weeks, no one's like... And Peyton doesn't even throw the ball downfield too much. He throws ducks. And they're great ducks. This is what makes him so impressive. And for me to say that, it's a big ball move. That's how good Peyton's been.
No, he has been incredibly good. But this is only just a regular season for Peyton. So
of course. But
JJ's
JJ's
just reserving judgment for the postseason.
JJ's got to show us something in the postseason. Yeah, it's
poor JJ. I mean, look what the crap he's got around here.
I'm just saying, you judging one guy as the postseason to be the best player on the planet. You got JJ, you got Calvin. They're probably the three because of how good they are per position. All of them have got to start doing stuff in the postseason.
I tell you, just a funny segue for a minute. If you was another team, what would you try and trade to try and get hold of JJ Watt? Just to say, for argument's sake, he's available.
Well, if they had cash considerations in the NFL, like Major League Baseball, everyone's so cheap in the cash considerations. If you notice that in Major League Baseball, it'd be like Jose Iglesias got traded to Detroit. They gave us like $25K. Like, Jose Iglesias, it's like a transfer that should be a couple of million. I would pay close to $200 million for JJ Watt. That's how good this guy is. You can market him and all this stuff. It would be a Herschel Walker-esque trade. Anything other than my quarterback, I would give up for JJ Watt. You can find offensive linemen. I just watched the Dallas Wall, A Great Football Life. None of those guys were taken in the first 3 rounds. Probably the best offensive line of all time. You didn't have to take them with the first overall pick. You didn't have to take them with the second overall pick. You can find those guys in the street. If they work as a tandem, then they're really good. You can't find elite pass rushers every day. You can't find the quarterback every day. In this day and age, outside my quarterback, I would trade anyone on my roster. They could have all 52 guys outside my quarterback and my head coach. Give me JJ Watt.
Anything basically that isn't nailed down.
Mm-hmm. If it's the Patriots, Brady and Belichick, take whatever else you want and money and give me JJ Watt.
It's just incredible, isn't he? And this is it.
Same thing with Calvin, though. I feel the same way about Calvin Johnson. I would trade almost anything outside my quarterback, and if I had an elite pass rusher, for Calvin Johnson.
But going back to Peyton Manning for a minute, do you think maybe that Denver just do rely on him too much and they don't explore the running game enough? And I think that, for me, is going to be ultimately their downfall at the end of this season, is because they rely on him too much. I'm not saying that Manning can't deliver, because Manning can deliver. But you've got to have that balance. And I think it's so easy sometimes just to rely on Manning just to make those great decisions, whether it be a play that's called straight away and used, or whether it's a case of Manning calling audible and still being as successful. But I still think you've got to go back onto the run at times, because you still need to try and keep that clock moving and try and have a better amount of possession. I mean, yesterday they only had the ball for 24 minutes. I mean, okay, Kansas City did a really good job of running the football. I think the other thing Kansas City did really well yesterday, third down efficiency. 11 of 16. So he just continued to keep drives alive, which again kept Denver off the field. But I think Denver have got to utilize that running game to try and kind of turn it around a bit and try and put them back on the field a lot more.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. There's a couple of things in there because reliance seems like someone else is doing it to Peyton, whereas Peyton calls the plays and calls the shots. No matter what Adam Gase calls, I don't think he does call anything. I think he says what the front and protection is of the defensive line rather than, when you see him on the mic. I don't think he calls a play. I think he's telling you the front and what they would usually do based on that front. He's relaying that stuff to Peyton. And Peyton checks out more than any player in the NFL down to run play. He's happy to ride the run game. You look at the split yesterday, it's 18 runs because Peyton got sacked. So you got 18 runs to 26 pass attempts. That's probably fairly even when you have a guy like Peyton playing at that level. The major issue is, does he trust the running back? I don't know if he can do right now. Would you trust Monty Ball? I mean, he's getting decent yards per carry, but not getting the plays when they're necessarily needed and not getting a long enough gain where they can set up, because this is a big splash play offense. They may look methodical, but they get splash play after splash play with Demaryius Thomas, and when Welker was there, you set up the run game, you go really quick, you're at 3rd and 2, they're expecting to check down to Marino or something, and suddenly Demaryius Thomas is in behind on a wheel route, he's taking it to the house. It's more on Peyton. I think Peyton, after what happened last year, you're going to see more and more. He's going to take it all on himself, and he does do anyway. He's that sort of personality. He's that sort of player. But after the debacle that happened last year, and he fumbles the first snap in the Super Bowl, and they get blown off the ball, and everyone says that they're soft, I think he's going to want to do it all himself this year. So he'll probably ride the run even less. Plus, you've not got Marino, who you really trusted.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting exactly how much they are able to run the football over the course of the season. I mean, if you take a look at yesterday, you take away their longest gain by both Ball and Anderson. Other than that, they average 3 yards a carry.
It's rough. It's telling you. And again, they're facing. It's essentially a middle linebacker on the running back, and the running back's got to be able to make the right read and the right cut, whether the linebacker has no shot. And Marino did it so many times last year. We get the 12 and 13-yard gain. They don't have it right now. They got to find a play with vision who they can plug in there, and there's plenty of them out there. If you don't believe in Monty Ball, there's plenty of them waiting right now in the wings. There's guys who are 3rd string. There's a Kenyon Barner who just got cut by the Eagles. These guys are available if you just want to bring them in and give them a try, because you're basically saying one-on-one. Who wants it? Who can win those sort of battles? And any of the guys from Oregon, that's how they play their system. Maybe you give them a shot.
Yeah. I mean, there are always other options out there, and I think any running back should look good in a Peyton Manning system.
He really should. I think that's it for the evening games. Have I got that correct?
This is it. That's it for another weekend of NFL action. Of course, we have got the Monday Night Football coming up tonight.
Yeah, Monday Night Football, which is going to be a really fun one. People will probably have seen it, or at least heard of it by the time this goes out, but this is going to be a fun game. I'm majorly excited. I love Andrew Luck. I'm obsessed with Chip Kelly's offense. This is going to be like a football-gasm for Ollie Conley all night.
Is this going to be one of the ones that, we had this down as an Indianapolis win? Is this going to be another one that's going to be a bit of a shocker?
I think it's a toss-up because we know what's going to happen is Andrew Luck's going to be 21-0 down because it's the way they seem to design their offense, and the Eagles can come out really fast against you, and we'll see what Andrew can do. He likes playing from behind, so we'll see what he can do. I want to get to this story before we go because we do have to run tonight. Adrian Wozniacki is possibly, if not, he's definitely, to me, outside as, I don't know, I'm confused.
No, he's the best.
What he does, he's the best. He's probably the most respected. I think Zach Lowe is as respected because he knows the X's and O's, and then Adrian, for the news and for credibility, is the most respected journalist in all of basketball. And yesterday, he wrote a really weird piece. I thought it was so out of the blue and so almost unnecessary that you almost feel that Adrian had an axe to grind with a certain coach who just happens to be Mike Krzyzewski and Coach K, and a beloved figure in basketball to many and, hated by others, around the fact that he has essentially used Team USA for, however long now, 6 years I believe it is, as just a recruiting tool and nothing else for his, University of Duke Blue Devils. Nothing about, developing the team, rebuilding the entire organization. He has rebuilt Team USA basketball from the ground up. Guys like Billy Donovan, my coach with the under-19s now. And basically, Woj just came out with, he sort of layered it with talks about USA basketball going forward with stars and under-23 tournament. But he really wanted to write a piece about Mike Krzyzewski. Let's be honest. Every other paragraph was just shot after shot at Krzyzewski, which either means that Coach Cal or someone told him something, because remember Krzyzewski leaked something about Coach Cal and recruiting a week or two ago, or he just had an accident with Krzyzewski for some time and he took his shot today or yesterday, whenever it was.
Yeah, we'll see what Coach K's riposte is.
And I wonder what their relationship was like beforehand, because for someone so well linked as Wozniacki, and Coach K doesn't have to go to anyone to leak a story because people are just begging to get words out of him. I wonder what their relationship was like beforehand, or whether something has fractured the relationship to elicit this sort of response. But it's a real personal attack on his credibility and what he does, and it just doesn't hold weight to me, because I'm looking at some of the examples, and he flew to this under-19 camp to speak to Okafor and the other guy, and suddenly they signed with Duke and stuff, and it was labeled as a great Team USA thing where he thinks it was about Duke trying to recruit these players, not mentioning the fact that Billy Donovan is with the guys for a month. He's got plenty of time to recruit off the books for Florida. He didn't get the recruits in. So the examples were odd to me. The whole piece was odd, and I love Woj, but it was just bizarre to me. It was basically unnecessary.
Yeah, and a lot of people are buying into this, because we all know a lot of people hate Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Myself
included.
So you put an article out there from a very respected journalist attacking Coach K and Duke. People are going to share that and read it and comment and everything else.
And that's why we're talking about it today.
Love this kind of thing.
We didn't talk about Woj's column last week. We're talking about it today because it's about Coach K and it's about Duke. Let's be straightforward about it. And it's two well-respected figures. Seemingly, they've got issues with each other. At least it goes one way, and it will go the other way now. You better believe it's going to go the other way now. Unnecessarily. I really think it is. And I don't know whether there's a close relationship between Coach Cal and Woj. One would believe there may be, with the amount of guys that come to the NBA from Calipari, and maybe there's a bit of fighting back from that. But it just doesn't hold weight to me. If anything, look, they asked him to come and coach the US national team. He took the job. That is an innate recruitment thing, because when you recruit people, you're not just selling the school, you're selling the coach. It's parents, it's brothers, sisters. Am I going to let my brother, my son, go off and be with this guy and help him form him into the man he's going to become, and hopefully go on to be a professional athlete and make some money for us and the family? That's the whole package of recruitment, and it's just part of it. I mean, it just is. It just naturally is, and he may not like it, but who's as qualified as Coach K to take that job? And why shouldn't he use that? Why shouldn't he say, hey, guess what? I have LeBron James's mobile number on speed dial. I text him every week after a game. You want to ring LeBron now and speak to him? Why shouldn't he use that? Everyone else would. I would.
People have used a lot worse.
It's better than money under the table, is it not? It's been as the example he uses is, look, Calipari tried to get himself front and center in all the pictures with the gold medals and stuff. Like, why is that an issue? It's better than him wafting around 50k in a brown envelope.
Yeah, as I said, people have done a lot worse, and that's it. It's not a non-story, but it's a surprising one, and this is it. I mean, from such a respected guy, it's not quite what I expected to wake up to, or certainly what Coach K would have expected to wake up to after what was a gold medal winning performance at the World Cup.
Where do you think it came from? Because he mentions Calipari twice. And now, what's funny is part of the piece was to try and deflect heat from Calipari by saying he's often thought of as the self-serving guy. Remember, Calipari once took the job of the Dominican Republic to recruit one player, then bailed after the player committed to play for his school. So, but you mentioned him twice, so it sounds fishy. Like, why are you trying to put these two guys against each other?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to this than meets the eye at the moment. I think we'll learn about that over the coming days, I would have thought.
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss that because I found it's just bizarre. It's just unnecessary. Like I said, for a guy in his position, and I'm not saying it's too bad a thing. It's his own opinion. He can say whatever he wants. He doesn't really have to contain himself if he doesn't want to. But I just found it out of place and just unnecessary at the time.
Yeah, I mean, the line stands out. As long as Coach K needs recruits at Duke, he needs USA basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things in there. I mean, the whole column wasn't just about Coach K and Duke. It was also bits in there as well around how the World Cup and the Olympic Games may look from a basketball standpoint in the future, because we've now got to a point of where people were catching up to the dream team, if we want to still call them that. But now the dream team have moved on again. And now it's time to, I think, to take these established stars out of these tournaments and use it as a way to develop some of the younger guys. And, maybe we'll see in the future, if it's an under-22 team, we'll see some younger NBA stars, plus also some collegiate stars in there as well. And I think that'll be quite interesting to watch. I think from a point of view of the World Cup, I think that may take something away from that. And I think that could be one of the big issues, because Team USA was the biggest selling point at this World Cup. You notice it if you saw any of the tendencies of some of the other games. Certainly in the group stages, the attendance wasn't that great, I didn't think. And at the Olympics, the Dream Team is one of the biggest shows on the planet. Going back to Barcelona back in 1992, it was the biggest show on the planet. More recently, not quite the biggest show, but it's still one of those things that everyone wants to go and watch. And I was fortunate enough to go and see the 2012 version of the Dream Team a few times. And, it was one of those things that I wanted to go and see. And if you put a USA team out there that's got under 22 players, I would still be interested. But how many other people would if they can't go and see the Kobe's and the LeBrons of this world?
I would actually be more interested. I really would. It's boring to me. They should steamroll. They did win. And I understand against Spain or France, if they meet them, it will be a game. But outside of that, it's too easy. And do they still call them the Dream Team? That's blasphemous. Really?
Wait.
They're not fit. None of these guys are fit to even look at the Dream Team. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins is on pace now for a Hall of Fame career, but the guy's been in the league a couple of years. These Anthony Davis as well, but they shouldn't even be looking at that word.
No, I mean, it's still something that gets thrown around. I mean, especially with regard to the team in 2012. I mean,
superstars, galore Hall of Famers, but
yeah,
I mean, you got guys who could end up on the Mount Rushmore or on people's Mount Rushmore. You got KD. Was Kobe there?
Yeah, KD.
So you got Kobe, LeBron,
Melo,
Derrick Rose
LeBron.
at the time. I mean, yeah, that's a different conversation. But Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, I'm sorry, you cannot label that as a dream team. Even if Paul George was there, I'm sorry, but not yet, not even a champion. Oh well, I got a couple more stories I want to touch on before we have to run out of here. First of all, Marty Morningwig, since we've been doing this, the Jets OC has took responsibility for the timeout. So the rants earlier against Marty, he accepts them as well. I'll lay off him a little bit. So that's the first thing. Secondly, this John Abrams story is unbelievable to me. This is the guy who basically self-confessed, I have memory loss because of concussions and head trauma from being in the NFL. I have to miss time, and now he's back on the team. What sort of coaching staff says, come back, John? And John isn't an angel, far from it. Not the most liked man in the league, not the most liked man by fans. But the league has allowed him to come back into it after he admitted to memory loss without saying you've got to sit at least a month. And the team says, yeah, we're going to keep this guy around, and with my morals as a coach, I'm going to put him out there on a third and goal line play with all the high collisions. How could you do that morally as a coach in an organization?
As a organization, as a governing body,
as a person in Bruce Arians, who's known this guy now for 2 years as a head coach, so you got to assume some sort of closeness. The guy's obviously going to be some sort of leader. People will look up to him because of the name. Let the guy go home to his family. He's been in the league long enough. Give him a severance package. Get him out of there.
Yeah, he shouldn't be anywhere near a football field. I think we should really get to a point of where so many concussions, really sorry, you cannot play this game anymore. And that goes for football and hockey, but obviously they're the most prevalent of where we see these things, because we are learning about concussions more and more. I mean, I even talked about this to Tal Pinchevsky the other day from a hockey standpoint. We're learning all the time about what concussions do, and we've got to start being a lot more clever and a lot more tuned in, because otherwise more and more guys are still going to get hurt, and we're not actually learning as much as we should do.
Absolutely, and it's difficult because you have the thing of, if we put a number on it, players aren't going to report it. There's no easy way around it, but one way to do it is after every practice, everyone has to go for a doctor check. It may take time, may cost money. You've got to do it. After every practice, everyone gets checked. Quick concussion protocols. If you pass, well done to you. If you don't pass, unlucky, that's a strike. They're the sort of ways you've got to do it, and then you've got to have a panel of guys who can look at this on a scale and say this is severe, this is not severe. It's a really rough situation. It's going to take time to figure out. Anyway, we've got to run, so that'll do us for tonight's First 8 UK podcast. Please, please, please go and drop us a ratings on iTunes, Stitch, whatever platform you're listening to us right now. And please head up to ftukpod.wordpress.com. We have out right now the first of Steven Edwards', he just mentioned him then, NHL preview. He's done the Metropolitan Division with Tal Pinchevsky, who wrote that sensational book. Go and check it out right now. It's a YouTube exclusive. Once we get 2 divisions done, they'll hit the streamers podcast. We're going to roll like that as he works through both conferences. So Steven Edwards, is that good? Is that fun? Is it worth a listen?
It's definitely worth a listen. It was a lot of fun. It's around about a 45-minute breakdown of all the teams in the Metropolitan Division. We'll tell you where those teams will finish in that division and which of those teams will make the playoffs and which ones won't.
All right, then that does us for tonight on First Take UK. Check us out on Twitter at UK First Take. Find Steven Edwards at StephenFTUK. Find me at Ollie UKEZ. And please go and read my stuff right now, UKEndzone.com. I did a piece today, 6 things that should happen this week in the NFL, but they obviously won't. I think it's worth the read, to go and check it out. And Steven Edwards, I will speak to you next time.
Definitely look forward to it. Good night from me.